What thing did your family do as a kid that you later learned wasn't normal? Cook roadkill, etc. Hoarding. Both of my parents come from parents who were traumatized by the Great Depression and poverty. As such, my grandparents were all hoarders. And when my parents divorced when I was very young, both of their houses were heavily hoarded too. I was never allowed guests, and for some reason never really realized why other families' houses didn't look like mine. We even had panics where one parent or the other would have reason to believe that Child Protective Services could visit, so we would clean as a squad well into the night to pretend we weren't always like this. When I moved out on my own, I threw out 33 bags of trash, donated 2 truckfuls of miscellaneous, and still filled a 2-bedroom apartment to the point the girlfriend who was planning on moving in with me was uncomfortable with the lack of walkable space. All from the contents of my single room from back home. She helped me embrace the value of empty space and realize the lack of value of things with which you never interact. So you'd never know looking at our home now that I used to have dedicated footholes in the junk pile where you step to get from the bed to the door. Stuff is overrated. Man. As an adult, I learned that the fun games my mom played with us were because the utilities were shut off. I remember there being a night where we had a special club with made up chants that we sung while dancing around with flashlights. My sister clued me in as an adult that the Unga Bunga Club was what my mom did when we didn't have power. It worked, because I have great memories and was oblivious to our struggles. My older brothers and I started driving from Wyoming to Iowa multiple times a year when my oldest brother was 13, to have second Christmas, second Thanksgiving, etc. with my mother who moved away when I was around 10. Not normal for children to be driving themselves across the country. And no cop ever stopped us either. We read books around the dinner table. Everyone would bring their current book and we would sit in silence reading and eating until someone had a quote or something they wanted to share or teach. I thought everyone did this and brought my books with me for a long time. I went home with a college friend my freshman year. After dinner the first night, I asked her whether her parents were always so calm or whether they were acting that way because she had company. She didn't know what I meant. What I meant was that her parents didn't yell and scream at each other at the dinner table. I thought that was normal behavior. I was 18. My parents would knock on my door sometimes late at night and ask me what I wanted from Taco Bell. Younger me always thought it was because my parents wanted to do something nice and fun, and Taco Bell is awesome. Once I entered high school I realized my parents were stoners and they were making munchie runs. Once I was at a friend's house. Friend's younger sister, middle school aged at the time, was responsible for pet sitting their grandparents' chickens when grandparents were away. Grandparents' house and chickens were about a 15 minutes walk from friend's house. One Friday night when I was at their house, above-mentioned sister said, "Whoops, I forgot to do XYZ with the chickens when I went over there today." Quote, friend's mom was like, "Oh okay. No big deal. We can walk over there after dinner and take care of it." The simpleness of that response, the understanding that mistakes get made, the calmness of providing a solution, and offering to accompany the girl to resolve the matter. This all made me realize how abnormal my upbringing was. Because my mother would have screamed at me and called me an idiot and would have acted like my thoughtlessness was the biggest inconvenience in the world. Took me a long-ass time to realize that patching holes in the drywall with your mom isn't something everyone learns to do. In fact, I can't remember seeing a single hole in any of my friends' walls. Weird. Maybe their walls were just fistproof or something. Thinking face. My parents woke us up at 4 a.m. to make them a drink. Whiskey and water on the side. I only found out this wasn't normal when I spent the night at a friend's house. I slept until 7 a.m. and was shocked. I asked my friend why her parents didn't wake us up at 4 a.m. She said why would they do that? I said to make them a drink. Her reaction to that made me realize I didn't have a normal home life. My parents are into birding. And when a migratory bird or other interesting species would die in their yard, occasionally they'd put the poor thing in a Ziploc and freeze it so they could look at it later. I guess. They also had a frozen pet caiman that had died, until spring came and they could bury him in the yard. So when I grew up and my husband and I bought our first house, and an unusual woodpecker hit a window and died, I scooped it into a Ziploc and froze it. As one does. My husband was incredibly weirded out and informed me that it is not, in fact, normal to have dead wild birds in the freezer. My mother reused leftover shake and bake, added raw chicken or pork chops, shook it up, took out meat, wrapped up bag and put it back in the box for next time. Yikes. I don't know why we didn't have constant GI issues. Having an alcoholic dad. I seriously thought all dads drank like mine. Also a mom with an eating disorder. I thought all moms ate like a bird. Until I was older and going to my friends' houses and seeing their moms actually eat, I thought that was so strange, cuz like why is your mom eating that whole plate lol. Leave cookies and beer for Santa. I never knew it was supposed to be cookies and milk till I was older. Also, I thought everyone's dad got in the car to drive somewhere with an open beer in his hand. We picked up hitchhiking couples, took them home, fed them, even though we were pretty poor, and invited them fully into our home. This was my folks, not me. In the 80s, I remember my mom running bubble baths and just treating the lady like a princess. I was pretty young then, but in later conversations it was always happy memories for my folks. Maybe nobody overstayed because my parents were Jesus freaks who probably proselytized. Lol. We all shared one rag at the dinner table to wipe out hands and faces with. Dad was in charge of the rag and we would all just ask to use it and pass it back. When we had some of my mom's cousins visited for the first time, they bought us cloth napkins and paper towels lol. We still use the rag though. It's a running joke now. However, we don't do it anymore. Sometimes around when my parents started making disposable income, they started buying paper towels. I only learned after working in a pet supply store that the game my dad used to play with my brother and me whenever we went on a family beach vacation was not for kids and was, in fact, a chuck-it specifically made for dogs. Woman shrugging. Edit. Guys, I love my family and my dad is amazing. I'm pretty sure he didn't know it was for dogs and just wanted to play catch with us on the beach. I swear he wasn't trying to be terrible lol. Lol, my mom used to steal things from restaurants like compulsively. Nothing fancy or particularly valuable, but like sugar dispensers, flatware, a cute ceramic carafe. It would go straight into her handbag. She was always so elegantly put together. She could practically do it in front of people without them noticing. I used to think it was so daring and cool until I became an adult and realized it was sort of a pathological need. This might be lame, but it might also be cool. The house my parents could afford was far enough from a dairy farm that we couldn't see it, but close enough that having cows in our yard was not a weird experience. We lived near some of the farmhands and they gave us the dairy's number so we could call over and report the cows. We'd regularly see men on horseback come over to get the cows. Took years before I realized seeing cows and cowboys wasn't common. Shit talk everyone from our friends to the rest of the family. No one was safe from caustic remarks. Go on hooker cruises during sleepovers. I should really ask her why, but whenever we had sleepovers, my mom would inevitably say, "Who wants to go for a hooker cruise?" At like 11 p.m. and then we'd all pile in the car and drive around the shady area of the city to see if we could spot sex workers. Like, what was the point of that? Was she looking for someone she knew? Did she just like going for weird drives at night? I really need to get to the bottom of this.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.